Thank you, Acting Speaker, and I rise to speak on the Marine Safety Amendment Better Boating Fund Bill of 2020. And I'll begin by saying that this was a commitment made by the Liberal Nationals that we would put all the money that comes in from licensing and registration into infrastructure for jetties and infrastructure around the lakes and coastline, in recognition of the ageing infrastructure and the understanding that we have of the importance of tourism, the importance of recreational fishermen and women, and the importance of boating. But it's no surprise that the pre-election, the Premier also matched that commitment. But the point that is needing to be made today is that he didn't match that commitment, because what he's said and what he's done in this bill is starkly different, or very different, in that the fact is that the promise that every cent, as I quote from the Premier's announcement, that every cent of the licensing and registration fees will be spent on boating safety and facilities, in this very bill, that is actually not what it does, because they've used very, very clever words to say that the Treasurer might, or may, or can. So really, it's a way of tricking the community into believing that they have an intent. But we'll watch and we'll see many of these funds go anywhere but into the infrastructure needs that were promised and that we had a very strong commitment to and still do. So I look at the opportunity that's been missed here by this broken promise by the Andrews Labor government, and I only have to look down the coast of South West Coast to Warrnambool, in fact, where we've got a breakwater, a very important piece of infrastructure, important to the local economy and the tourism industry, and certainly a feature for our community that needs a lot of structural work to be able to be sound for the future. So will we ever see a commitment from this government by using these funds, of which we won't see the amount we should initially, and even if, will we see those funds come down to South West? We also got the boat ramps, the boat ramp at the breakwater, which has been an issue for a very long time. It's had many studies done on it, and the designs are drawn up, and it's ready to go. So, my plea to the Andrews Labor government is to think about the trouble we're having with COVID and the challenge we've got for tourism, and think of our region. And please, in the budget, the breakwater, please fund its the work that needs to be done, and the Project Ready, the shovel-ready project of the boat ramp in Warrnambool to be funded in this budget would be a really good boost for our local tourism sector and local economy. There's also the issue that comes to mind of needs for infrastructure in other parts of my electorate, such as over at Nelson, where we've got a shed sitting on a jetty, and the shed's been quite old. It's just a little shed, and a guy by the name of Brett Carson actually operates a boating hire venture out of there, and it's actually been a bait and boat sort of shed for about 50 years. Now, Brett's been there for some years, and his cousin before him, and he's just had no end of trouble asking for the government to understand that his business, they've decided the building should be condemned. They've locked him out July 1st, and he's now operating nowhere. They've not committed to where he can go to run his business. He's actually been left languishing. And so, it's not up to local committees of management to come up with funds. That's what these funds should be for. And this situation in particular should be fixed immediately, because little places like Nelson on the Glenelg River, where people go to fish and to have a lovely relaxing holiday, canoe and hire boats with the kids. These are services that people like Brett offer to the whole of the region, and it keeps towns like Nelson very attractive and viable, having those activities for young families to go and do when they visit the towns like Nelson. So it's very disappointing to see that this fund, the Better Boating Fund that was established, so all that money could go back into those infrastructure projects and towards boating safety is simply not going to happen. But what's really disappointing is that the people of Victoria continually get these promises made and those promises then get broken. I mean, another one of broken promises that springs to mind is the Murray Basin Rail Project and the fact that, the government promised, and I remember the Premier down in Portland actually talking about the project because it would be of great advantage to Portland as the grain that comes from the northern part of the state would have the opportunity to go to the three ports and be competitively able to happen that way. But currently, because of the infrastructure, Portland is at a significant disadvantage to the Port of Melbourne and the Port of Geelong. So this was a project that the Premier promised. They had 440 million, 220 million from the feds and 220 from the sale of rural finance, of which they held back half of that, and now it's all wasted and the project has been botched. And not only that, but the capacity of that rail is less than when the government first touched it. So that's an extraordinary statement that someone can say they're going to fix something and they have a go and they do such a bad job that they've got less capability than before they began. And now, how about this, the audacity to actually ask the feds to come in and fix the problem and still only wipe up the mess.
Order.
But I know I'm going to get called back.
It's good if people take their conversations outside while the members on their feet. Thanks.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. So I was discussing the fact that we've got broken promise after broken promise, and that when we're really looking forward to being able to help projects in Victoria, particularly projects on the coastline and on the lakes where we have, particularly really at the moment with the issue around COVID causing such challenge in the communities, particularly on the coast where tourism plays a massive part. It's very disappointing. And I was actually just referring to another broken promise of the Murray Basin Rail Project and how the government has botched it, and it's now worse than what it was before they began. But I think, it's nothing short of disappointing, but not surprising, because we've been seeing lots of hoodwinking and lots of stunts that demonstrate that what we're being told is going to happen and what does happen is not the case. And it's not a better example than this one today with the promise of transparency as well. I haven't even mentioned that in the bill there's no way we can even know where into the future the projects that do get prioritised out of this Better Boating Fund are even going to be. So how can we monitor the progress of what we're going to get as a community, return on investment for that money that the boating people are actually putting into this fund, where they're going to get the return on that for their activities? I don't think we'll ever know, because that's clearly the intent of the government, is to make sure transparency is the least obvious activity that will be able to be achieved. So, look, I might finish up by saying it is really important that the government do take some time to recognise the importance of tourism, particularly down in South West Coast where we've taken a big hit. I think it was reported last week that over 5,000 jobs will be lost from the region, which is an extraordinary amount. So let's put some effort into building projects such as projects that are ready, like the boat ramp at Warrnambool. Let's get on with putting Brett Carson back into business by building him a shed that he can start his business out of again, instead of leaving him high and dry with nothing. Let's get the breakwater fixed. I mean, this is a project that requires, I think, around 10 million to ensure it's structurally sound for the future. So these are very important projects, and I think there's no reason why these people who spend the money on the licences, who have been promised that money will go back into 100% into the Better Boating Fund, that in a few years' time we can actually see that there has been some outcomes. But unfortunately, it looks to me like the way this bill has been structured, that they have absolutely no intent on delivering into that promise to the recreational fishermen and boating community of Victoria.